Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Muslimah Media channel, Women of the Quran, a brand new series that we're going to begin with the story of Sarah. My name is Zainab Ansari and I'm delighted to present Sarah's story. Now, I want to say that first of all, she's a very intriguing figure for a number of reasons. Sarah, or Sarah, is the wife of Ibrahim, or Abraham, peace be upon him, who is known in the Islamic tradition as the friend of Allah, or Khalilullah. Now, from a modern perspective, Sarah sometimes is kind of held up as being this rather bitter woman who kind of has to contend with the younger rival in the form of Hagar or Hajar. However, from the Islamic perspective, Sarah is actually cast in a very positive light. Now, she does not recur frequently throughout the Quran. She's not mentioned as extensively as other women. However, her story is still important. And it's worth mentioning that she also does figure in the Hadith literature as well. Now, modern women, I think, can really relate to Sarah in the sense that she's a woman who had to deal with issues of infertility. And this comes across in the Quranic ayah where, let me set the stage or the scene for you, where this is during the prophethood of Ibrahim alayhi salam, kind of concurrent with the events that are happening with Prophet Lut, peace be upon him, or the community of Lot. And there are angels that are being sent to the people of Lot during this time. And those angels actually make an appearance in the household of Ibrahim first. And so the Quran recounts this story of Ibrahim, who was known to be very generous, basically serving sort of this roasted lamb, right, to his guests. And he notices the visitors don't touch the food. But in the meantime, Sarah is standing there, and she's also kind of keenly observing what's going on around her. And the angels deliver her news that, as the Quran says, فَضَحِكَتْ, it makes her laugh. She actually, so this is not kind of like a retiring, shy kind of wallflower kind of woman. She's there, she's in the midst of the guests, she's standing there, she starts laughing at them because they tell her something that delights her heart. And she says, how is this possible that you're telling me this news? How am I, she calls, وَأَنَا عَجُوز, she says, I'm an old woman, وَهَذَا بَعْلِي شَيْخًا, and my husband is a sheikh, i.e. he's an elderly man. How are we, this elderly couple, going to have a son in this, late age of ours? So, so this is her response to the angels. She's a very candid, forthright woman, and she comes across in the Quran as expressing astonishment. And the angels say to her, and they're called messengers, right, because they're emissaries from God. And the angels say to her, well, they say, أَتَعْجَبِينَ فِي أَمْرِ اللَّهِ, are you surprised by the command of Allah? This is Allah's mercy and blessing upon you, O household of Abraham. So that's how they present it. So you can tell that she's both delighted, astonished, and truly surprised that in her old age and also in her husband's old age that they're going to be blessed with a son. And as we know from the Quranic perspective, that son is Ishaq, who is the father of Yaqub, who is also known as Israel. So this is how Sarah's story, I think, is so interesting because she's the mother of all this entire series, line of prophets. But she's presented as this very human figure who is dealing with infertility because she's an elderly woman who expresses her astonishment in the very presence of God's angels at how am I, this elderly, barren woman, how am I supposed to have a child come out of my womb? But it's the command of Allah, and she accepts it. So, so she's venerated in the Islamic tradition. Now, kind of reading further, especially reading the commentaries written on this particular surah, or reading the Hadith literature, there's more commentary on Sarah, how she relates to Hajar, how she views Hajar. Now, one of the things that's really interesting is that the jealousy of Sarah is not really a theme in the Islamic sources. It occurs in sources outside the Islamic tradition, but in the Islamic sources, Sarah does not come across as a jealous woman who wants Hajar cast out. In fact, Sarah comes across as a woman who clearly is struggling with the idea that her husband has taken a much younger second wife. But what we kind of see in the story of Sarah as well as Hajar or Hagar is they basically submit or surrender to this idea that God is working these specific miracles in their lives through these stories. And that's what we see. So Hajar very willingly goes with Ibrahim into the deserts of Arabia, where she and Ismail are left behind to establish what becomes known as Mecca, right? And Ismail becomes basically the progenitor of the Arabs, right? And then, of course, Sarah, according to Islamic tradition, after that after she kind of experiences, just sort of the feelings of seeing her husband marry Hajar, and Hajar has a child, and then they're left in Arabia. After all of that, Sarah herself, at a very old age, is blessed with the birth of Ishaq, right? So again, from the Islamic perspective, we have this very interesting human story of a woman dealing with issues of infertility and old age, but still managing to be thankful to God. And my personal sense of this story is that she comes across as a very sort of holistic figure, right? We don't see the vengeful, jealous wife, but we actually see an elderly woman who is, through the miracle of the birth of Isaac or Ishaq, is exemplifying the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way His command unfolds in the lives of these people who come to be known as basically the matriarch and the patriarch of an entire line of prophets. So that's a little bit about Sarah, who is chronologically, as far as stories of women of the Quran, one of the oldest of those stories mentioned. Thank you so much, and make sure you tune in next week for our second episode in Women of the Quran by Muslimah Media channel. I'm Zainab, and I want to thank you for watching Women of the Quran, a series of Muslimah Media channel. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, tell all your friends and family, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Inshallah, see you next time.